Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this morning or this afternoon if you're overseas. My name is Ashley Dano. I'm the Vice President at Castor Communications, and we are the agency of record for the Z-Wave Alliance. And we've worked with the Alliance for a little over 5 years now. We used to have more frequent touch points with members through marketing work group, and that sort of ended, and now we are doing webinars to have a touch point with members to let you know what we're working on, what types of things you can take advantage of. So if you're brand new to the Alliance or you haven't been super involved from a marketing perspective, we're going to run through all of the different opportunities and ways that you can get involved. If you have been involved and you're looking to just kind of get an update on what we're doing, great. We're happy that you're here. At any point during this webinar, if you have questions, you can drop them into the chat. My colleague, Alexandra Gill, will be on there answering questions as we go, and I will try to peek at them at the end and answer anything that hasn't been resolved. It's a little tough for me to do during the webinar, but feel free to put anything in there, and we can also follow up afterwards. So we're going to talk today about the ecosystem, what's going on with Z-Wave, learn about all of the plans that we have from 2019 and into 2020, talk about events, and just sort of give you the lay of the land in terms of PR and marketing. So like I said, I am our team lead. I lead the Alliance account, and I have several people on my team. Alex Gill is sort of my right-hand person. Couldn't do anything without her. She's going to actually be jumping on during the webinar. I'm going to throw it to her at a certain point, and she's going to review some of the PR toolkit and newsletter items that we have. So you'll hear her at some point. Pete Gerard is also on our team, and then we have a big support staff as well. So there's lots of folks that you might interact with if you have worked with us in the past or will work with us in the future. We've worked with the Alliance since 2015. We are really proud of the work that we've done so far with the Alliance staff, with the folks at Sigma, now Silicon Labs. It's been a really collaborative effort. We've worked hand in hand with many members. I know some of you on the phone. I've seen the list. We've worked with you directly, and actually we have some examples of how we've worked with members, and your name might come up. So we really appreciate all of the hard work that's been done over the last 5 years. We've had lots of success with press coverage over the years. These are just some numbers in terms of where we are. Our social media feeds have grown exponentially over the last 5 years. And, you know, I constantly say this at Z-Wave summits or whenever I present to members, all of this is a direct result of the work that you all put in and the work that you do with us. We really are, we're a member-driven organization. So without that input and that, that cooperation, we really wouldn't have the success we have today. So, thank you for all of that. If you're brand new or you haven't been involved yet, there's tons of opportunity. So, and we're going to talk about that. So one of the things that we do with members or with the Alliance in general is look for high-level media opportunities. So some of the ways that we talk to the press are through interviews or Q&As with our executive director, Mitch Klein, or sometimes board members. So we have a lot of those opportunities. We try to position ourselves as an expert or authority in the IoT and smart home space, but we also look at opportunities to show off Z-Wave technology. And obviously, because we're not product manufacturers ourselves, when we're looking to show off different devices or new devices that have come to the market, we obviously have to work hand in hand with our members to accomplish that. So one really big example of something we did a couple of years back, we worked with the New York Times journalist, who's actually at Vanity Fair now, in doing an install in his house. So we brought several member products with us. We installed a Nexia system in his home with a bunch of peripheral devices. It was part of a 3-part series he was writing. So he wrote about, he had installed all these DIY Wi-Fi products himself. So he had Canary and August and a couple of different, and this was a couple of years ago. So a couple of different devices. And then he had a professionally installed smart home system. He actually put Control 4 in his house. And so then we sort of came in and we were the middle of the road, a little bit more different than the kind of one-off Wi-Fi device experience, but not so high-end or sort of professional as the Control 4 experience. And so that resulted in a really nice piece in the New York Times. He really liked a lot of what Z-Wave had to offer. He liked the mesh network. He liked the fact that devices devices didn't always, he actually had an experience where his router broke and he had to repair all his devices, his Wi-Fi devices, and he liked the fact that he didn't have to do that with all of the Z-Wave devices. So there was a lot of, that was really exciting for us. We've done other opportunities with this old house, similar. We went to the special project editor's home and we did an install there. These are things that come to us and that we pitch out on they're not all of the time, but when we have an opportunity, it's always great for us to know what members have new products and what things are in the market that we could, potentially leverage. Ultimately, we will generally present the journalists with a lot of different options because it's, we're not interested in playing favorites. We want to let everyone have equal opportunity. And then the journalists will, give us feedback in terms of what products they think will work for their house and what's interesting. And so, just to be super transparent there, that we love these opportunities. We definitely rely on members to work with them, and we hope to continue doing them in the future. And so if you're, someone who you'd like to get more your product in one of these installs, we'd love to work with you on that and hear from you. We also do things like provide education to different media outlets. So Consumer Reports a couple of years ago kicked off their smart home coverage and reviews, and they brought in a lot of different groups to sort of educate them on the landscape. And we still have, so we actually went to the Consumer Reports office. We presented to a group of 20 analysts or so. We still have touch points with them today. So what we try to do there is explain, the value proposition of Z-Wave and what Z-Wave brings to the market that's different than other technologies. And we talk about some of the, prominent brands and products that are in the space. And that way it gives them, when they are going to do their product reviews, it gives them sort of a framework of understanding what Z-Wave is. And so if you're a manufacturer and Z-Wave is in your product and that's a big push for you, you want people to know that it's Z-Wave connected, then, it will help them understand more of what the value of your product. And one of the things that's always tricky is that our devices, it's not the magic of one light bulb or the magic of one sensor. It's the whole solution together, and telling that story can be a little more complicated. So we try really hard to sort of evangelize and lay the groundwork across the consumer press, business press, and in different verticals so that you all can pitch your products and solutions as well. This is one we actually did fairly recently, and I think Jeremy from Qualsys is on the line, but we worked with Qualsys to do a case study on one of their projects with a home builder. And so we wrote up a case study, we got connected into the builder, and folks were involved in the project. We wrote up a case study, we pitched it, and actually got several different placements in some trade publications and builder publications. And this was great because, it was a way for us to show off the value of Z-Wave in a specific environment, in a specific implementation, and also help highlight a member and what they were doing. It was a win-win all around. And those are the types of projects that, we love. We really didn't require them to do a lot. We did all of the grunt work ourselves. We just needed the connections and the information. And, hopefully they felt really good about that. And it was great for us. We get a lot of great press. And it was, like I said, it was those types of opportunities. We don't, we're not involved in projects. We're not the manufacturers. So we rely really heavily on our members to bring us those things. And then we can help you get publicity on it and really push it out. So we're going to talk about specifics. We're going to get into sort of the PR opportunities. We're going to talk about, Alex is actually going to talk about our PR toolkit and the newsletter that we produce on a bi-monthly basis. We're going to talk about social media, and then we're going to get into the events that the Alliance does with the specific lens around what do we do for PR and marketing for events, and what can you expect if you sign up for the Pavilion, and what are the things that you have available to you if you participate in an Alliance event. So we're going to go through all of that, hopefully under the hour. The last time I did this, it went a little over, so we're going to be efficient and on time. So like I said before, the PR we do for the Alliance is varied. So it can be anything from a contributed article to an interview, to, sort of across the board of different opportunities. But one of the things we like to do is promote new products in the ecosystem, or help our members promote new products in the ecosystem. So if you have a product that's coming up for certification or has just been released from certification, particularly if you have products that are using some of the newer technologies, so if all of new products should have S2 inside. If if you're doing something with Smart Start, these are things that we really want to highlight and showcase. So we'd love to work with you on that. We have done everything from provide a supportive quote from the Alliance leadership to just helping, give you feedback on the release itself and sort of, making sure you're referencing all of the things correctly, and then sharing on our social media, sharing on our website, newsletter, et cetera. So there's lots of different venues that we can share it. We don't distribute the press release, but we also do keep track of all the different new products so that when we have the opportunity to pitch someone and talk about, for example, the products that will help you, winterize your home, or products that will help you keep an eye on your house during summer vacation, or any of these types of trends and things that we pitch throughout the year, we'll know, we'll have sort of a list of new products that have just come out that are good for that, and we will reference those. So the more we know about what you're doing and new products that you have out, the more we can, help you grow awareness around that and utilize those in conversations that we're having. We also, love to hear about partnerships and projects that you're doing. So this sort of goes along, with the case study discussion. Case studies are invaluable. So journalists and press, there's some press that will cover straight products, right? You give them a product to review, you send them a press release about your new product. They're all about their product specific, their gadget blogs, their, CNET or GearBrain or any of these publications that really are just dedicated to product coverage. But then you also have publications who want to tell a bigger story or want to sort of dig in there and really build a narrative around these products. So they're not necessarily as interested in, hey, this is a new product, but how did these products get used in the field? What was the implementation? What problems did it solve? What's the feedback from the end user? So whenever we have the opportunity to present the media with end users, examples and quotes, and obviously it's great when they can even talk to the folks, whether the end user is a builder putting this into someone's home or it's an actual consumer, those stories are really powerful. And again, we don't necessarily have access to that information as the Alliance, but you all do. And so if you have projects that you think, God, we'd love to, get some eyeballs on this would really make a great case study. We'd love to have this in the press, but maybe you don't have the resources to do so, or it's just not something that you've been able to get to yet. Let us help. Come to us and let's talk it through, because that's something that we can mutually benefit both the member and the Alliance and the ecosystem in general. So case studies are a big thing that we're always looking for. And even if you don't necessarily think a project is huge or it's this, crazy implementation that nobody's ever done before, it doesn't have to be a huge project to be worth some press. It could just be like the builder case study we talked about. It was a great example of how manufacturers and smart home companies are working with builders. And, there's probably other examples of that as well. And so just the ability to go and talk to the builder and talk to the folks involved with the project, that's what made it interesting for the journalist when we pitched it. So always be thinking about that. And it can be a B2B case study or it can be B2C. If you have a specific, we've worked with member companies in the past where they did an installation for a military veteran who was disabled and put products in his home to make his home more accessible. And so, it really runs the gamut of sort of different types of case studies that we are interested in. But if you have anything like that, definitely get in touch with us. We'll talk more about how to do that later on. And product placement. So this type of thing doesn't happen, like I said, this isn't a monthly thing. This is a couple of times a year. We have an opportunity to do a higher level media op. Most recently, last year, we worked with H2TV on their tiny home series. And we had the woman who was building the tiny home and was being featured on this one particular show. She was looking to make it energy efficient and use smart home gear. And so ended up putting lots of Z-Wave devices in that house. So those are examples where, we sort of act as an intermediary. We're not necessarily saying, oh, you should definitely put these devices. We give her sort of a range of options, and we connect her in with the brands if she wants to learn, if she wanted to learn more information. And so we just act as a conduit for that opportunity. So the ecosystem report, this was brand new this year. If you were at CES, you might have grabbed a copy. We have not done these in the past. And basically what this is sort of like an end-of-year report that you might see from a big company or a nonprofit or a consortium, where we're looking at all of the activities from the past year. What did we do? What did we accomplish? What did our members accomplish? What types of things happened throughout the year that we want to highlight? And we did this for a couple of reasons. One, because when we go to CES every year and we have, 20, 30, 40 interviews and press that are booked to come by, it ends up usually being more than that. A lot of them are, they want to sort of have that what's new, that touch point with the Alliance. And so this gave us a tangible piece to have them leave with after the interview. It was very well received. We printed copies specifically for media and analysts and bloggers. So it wasn't necessarily a mass produced item. It was really specific for those audiences. We worked with members who were interested in being highlighted in the report. And so we had the report had some sponsorship components, but we also, worked to include things that we had done over the year, whether it was we did the case studies or we did certain things. So if we worked with you throughout the year, you might also end up in the end of your report as a result. And it was very well received. It was downloaded a lot. We actually ran out of printed copies because so many people wanted it. And it was a good way for us to give the press sort of a tangible takeaway at CES. We plan on continuing to do this, and we will produce one in 2020. We have lots of great ideas for what we're going to do, and we'll be sharing more of kind of the framework and the opportunities to get involved as sometime in the summer, and you'll be able to sort of see how you can participate. But even if you're not in the Z-Wave Pavilion at CES, which we encourage you to be, of course, but even if you're not and you have your own booth, you can still participate in this as an Alliance member. So it's open to sort of anybody who is in the Alliance and wants to get more involved and get some visibility at CES. I'm going to throw it to my colleague Alex now. She's going to talk about the PR Toolkit and our newsletter.
Hi everyone, this is Alex Gill. It's great to see all of you here. I've worked with many of you over the years, but to those I have not, it's nice to meet you, and I hope we can work together soon. So the PR Toolkit, yes, this is something we developed. It's a one-stop kind of resource for all things PR and marketing resources for Alliance members. We really developed this as a place for members to be able to go and quickly grab things like logos or brand guidelines, as well as just some general Z-Wave messaging. So as we have listed here, we have a kind of comprehensive Alliance messaging and boilerplate doc that you can use when you're talking about the Alliance and your membership publicly, whether that's to the press or on social. Maybe it's in marketing collateral, stuff like that. So we also have some press release templates. As Ashley mentioned earlier, if you have a new product that has S2 or Smart Start, or maybe you've recently achieved Z-Wave certification just generally, you can use that press release as a template. And then from the Alliance side, as long as we're given, I'd say probably at least a week, maybe 2 weeks, as much as you can give notice, we can share a supportive quote from the Alliance Executive Director, Mitch Klein, to add, just kind of talking about your product, the benefit of having you join the product ecosystem, stuff like that. We don't distribute press releases on behalf of members, but we are happy to help with the quote. And then we will also give it like a proof to make sure that the Z-Wave language all looks correct, grammar, etc. We will provide that. So as much lead time as you can give us on that is much appreciated, but we're always happy to help and actually looking for more people to do that. So yeah, also in the toolkit, we have the logos, brand guidelines for using them, for trade shows, etc. We also have a social media guide. We'll talk about social media later in the presentation, but this guide has everything you really need to know about the handles we post on, the type of content we post, how we share content, popular hashtags at trade shows, and just generally ones that we engage with and stuff like that. We also, in the toolkit, have like our contact info and more basically about the stuff that we're talking about today, just kind of summarized in there. And we also have what we call the Pavilion Press Guide. So this is a guide we put together for members that are exhibiting in the Z-Wave Pavilion at a show and, how we typically play a role if we're on site supporting the Alliance, as we often do at big shows, or even off-site opportunities as well if we're not going to be there. So the toolkit is available on the member site. It's under member resources and marketing materials. And, if you have any questions once you jump in, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help clarify anything or provide any answers to anything you have. So I think you can go to the next slide for the newsletter.
Sorry about the jumping, folks.
Yeah,
I had an audio issue where I had to call back in. So
it's like she's getting really excited to move on.
Sorry about that.
So next we're going to dive into the newsletter. So the newsletter was a pretty big project when we first came on with the Alliance. It initially was pretty bare bones, and it went out to a very small, not very targeted list. It was essentially a feed of member news from the website. So not a lot of curation there, but what Castor did is we developed a kind of a content calendar and a plan to make it much more of a editorial place where we could have, thoughtful content from the industry and include information that members and others would find really valuable. So we've grown that following. We're now at, I think it's actually more than what's listed here, over 7,000 followers. I think we might be up to like 9,000 now. But within that list, they're very qualified. It's not just a kind of a random lead list from a few random shows of just, people that happen to pop into the pavilion really quick and got a scan. This is a list that has been really carefully curated over the last 4 to 5 years with people in the industry, like integrators, industry executives, others kind of generally in the IoT and smart home. So we've worked really hard along with Jana and her team to make sure that that list is really qualified and engaged too. We've seen a lot of really great engagement, and link clicks have grown substantially over the years. So we actually won a content award, as you'll see here on the slide, from PR Daily for it. And we've used pieces of the content that we've used over the years to pitch out and place in the media, stuff like case studies, etc. So, we've really tried to use this content to go beyond just sharing it in a newsletter in your email box. We've tried to make it really, really targeted and valuable for everybody reading it. So, as part of that, we really look to members to help contribute content. And actually, I'd say our preference is that a majority of it is from members, because we realize the value that all of you have as folks working in this industry. So whether you have a blog post or, an article you've recently written, or maybe someone on your team or, an exec or someone like that has written something for in publishing on LinkedIn, all of that is really great content and stuff we're looking for. So you'll see here on this slide, this is kind of our editorial calendar that we developed. We are currently on, our cadence is bi-monthly for the newsletter. So our May-June is about to go out, but our next issue is July-August. So we are actively looking for content for that now. So, after we jump off the call here and when folks get organized, feel free to reach out if you have any ideas. But what we like to do is give each issue kind of an overall theme to help bring it all together. But, we're always open to other ideas folks have as well. So if you look on here and you see the theme and you have a piece of content, you're like, oh, that doesn't really fit, feel free to just reach out to us, and, we can slot it in generally. And oftentimes we'll also reach out on the member site or just via email to ask questions about things like different industry trends, thoughts on things that are going on in the industry generally. For example, we usually do this around CEDIA for our integrator community. And then at the end of the year, we'll also generally do like a closing year wrap up. Many of you on the call today have actually contributed to that. So those are really great because we'll take those responses from you, or, your company, and include them in like kind of a Q&A section. We really like to do that. We probably will do that a couple more times this year. So, even if you don't necessarily have the resources or the time even to share a full written article, you can still contribute with content like that. So we usually aim to put out an issue the first week of the second month listed here. So for example, July, August will go out the first week of August-ish. We don't have like a set timing schedule. We have goals that we work towards. Sometimes things get delayed because of travel and whatnot, but that is generally what we stick to. So for the July, August issue, we'd like content kind of final from members by the third week or so of July. So we have time to send back edits, and, get finalized and all of that. So if you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so this little table on the right here has different sections that we typically have in the newsletter. But this does vary month to month. So some months we have some of these sections, some we have others that aren't in here. Like we have an on the road section that is kind of talking about different trade shows and events we're going to. May, June's, for example, is we're talking about the Z-Wave Summit and doing like a big detailed wrap up of that. So just because you see it here doesn't necessarily mean that it will be in the next issue, but it also means that we're really open to what you guys have to bring to us, and it does vary. But just general guidelines for contributed content from members are that we ask that the content you share isn't too overly promotional, meaning it isn't just like a press release for a product or something of that nature. We generally would like if you can share something where you basically take a stance on an industry issue or a trend, or maybe you're sharing an experience you've had that is related to smart home or other industries, or a great conversation you had recently somewhere. Something like that is great and much appreciated. And to be clear, you can mention a product if you have it, and there's, you have a marketing plan and you want to be pushing a certain product, you can absolutely mention it. We're just not looking for it to be just a straight, product news piece. There has to be kind of like a larger non-promotional angle to it. And sometimes, as we mentioned earlier, we will also use content that members share or contribute for contributed articles, or a Q&A kind of deal when we're pitching to the media. So it's always great to be as involved as you possibly can, and just make sure that you're reaching out with any ideas you have, and stay in touch with us. And if you have a couple ideas and maybe you're like, I don't really know how these can come together, but I do want to contribute and I want to participate, and I have some of these ideas, we can help formulate, and we can review pieces you have with feedback. So don't feel like it necessarily has to be fully fleshed out yet. Feel free to just send us some ideas, and we'll work with you directly to kind of put that together into kind of a more formulated piece. So with all of that in mind, feel free to shoot us an email. We have here the zwave@caster.com that goes to our whole team. So myself or Ashley or someone else will reach out to you and be in touch. And like I said, be sure to keep an eye on the member site as well, because we will post there looking for content or like the questions, and we'll ask for folks to respond by a certain deadline, etc. So yeah, thanks guys, and I hope to see some great newsletter content from you all soon. I think Ashley's going to dive into social media next.
Great. Thanks so much, Alex. All right. So hopefully we have no more audio blips during the rest of this. Apologies for that. Let's talk about social media. Someone actually asked a question in the chat about this, when we definitely want to dive in. So the Alliance right now maintains 4 social media channels: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Instagram is fairly new. We started that last year. We're still sort of experimenting on what the best use cases are for Instagram as a B2B facing consortium or member driven alliance. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Our Twitter profile by far is one of the places we get the most traffic and engagement. I think Twitter by its very nature is a very fast-moving platform, really where people tend to share news and data and things that are sort of coming out in the media. So it's not necessarily a place where we share photos or videos or talk a lot about events necessarily that we're at outside of news that's from those events, but we do share a lot of industry reports. We look often to member content. So we actually have we track all of when you come on board, you give any of your social handles to Janet and she gives them to us. We track those through a list. And so very regularly we're going and visiting your social pages and, any platform that you're on and figuring out how we can, amplify your content, share your content, make sure that we're paying attention to any news you have coming out. Obviously, our preference is to know ahead of time that you have a big announcement coming so we can help and plan that into our editorial calendar, which we do for social media. But if you don't let us know and we see it, we'll definitely expect us to retweet it and share and engage. Facebook's a little bit of an interesting one. So those of you that are consumer facing probably have a Facebook page for your company. All of you probably do, or at least have started one. Facebook is becoming increasingly tricky for brands and companies to actually have their organic posts show up in feeds. And one of the reasons for that is because Facebook has highly deprioritized content from company pages and really wants to see the majority of its content come from individual users. So that doesn't mean it's impossible or that you should not use Facebook, but the way that we use it as the Alliance is more targeted for sharing photos and videos, particularly during a event that we're at. We always do albums for each event that we host. So there's our newest album was from the Z-Wave Spring Summit in Amsterdam. And we use that as a place, we always try to tag members. We use it more as sort of a visual place to share things and share content and whatnot. LinkedIn is obviously probably second to Twitter in terms of our biggest area where we spend a lot of time. And that is, it's a perfect B2B platform. They introduced hashtag usage last year or the year before. So before, LinkedIn didn't allow you to use hashtags, or you could use them, but it wouldn't link to anything. And now, very similar to Twitter and Instagram, if you hashtag your content on LinkedIn, a post or whatnot, whether from your personal individual profile or your company page, it will get slotted into the entire conversation around that hashtag. So if you tag something hashtag IoT security, if someone searches that hashtag or they're following that hashtag, they will then see your content in their feed, even if they're not following your company page or connected to you on LinkedIn. So that has made LinkedIn much more valuable, I think, across the board for companies. And we've certainly spent a decent amount of time there. We also will use it for contributed articles. So for those of you who don't do this, if you have contributed articles written by an executive in your company or anything that is sort of penned by an executive or spokesperson, you should be using LinkedIn Publishing. So in Publishing is their sort of LinkedIn's internal blog. It used to be called Pulse. And basically it allows you to post blogs or post articles, tag them, and then share them. And they get shared to your feed, but they also get pinned to your profile. So companies cannot have, you can't as a company page do this. You have to do it on an individual basis. So for us, we use this for Mitch Klein a lot when we write articles and work with him on different pieces, and then he will put them on his in publishing site in publishing on his profile. And then generally speaking, we get even more engagement there, comments. A lot of people will share those articles. So it's kind of a chance to get a second bite at the apple, where we might have posted that in a newsletter, or we may have gotten it posted to a editorial site, but we still can use it again for social content. So we're always trying to sort of reprioritize. And if you all do that, and you have executives that share articles that have been written with their byline, those are things that we would love to know about too, because then we can share that into our feeds and have folks share that. So these are sort of just the high level numbers from to date. We focus a lot on trying to curate the content really closely so that it is appropriate for the audiences, and we're sort of building our authority in the space, in the smart home and IoT space. If you are very active on a certain platform. We really encourage you to connect with us. These are a sample of the hashtags. There's actually another slide with hashtags as well. There's a question about this in the chat. So this is not an exhaustive list by any means. When it comes to Z-Wave specifically, we try to stick with the hashtag Z-Wave. If you have a product announcement or something that involves Z-Wave, we'd love to see you tag that. We've experimented with others in the past few years, but what we found is that there's always some confusion about what exactly is that hashtag. So we've used powered by Z-Wave, for example, or just different ones that we've tried. And what we found consistently is that hashtag Z-Wave is the one that people can remember easily, and it sort of curates a nice feed of things that are related to Z-Wave and the Alliance. So that's our sort of proprietary hashtag. We'd love to see people using that. The rest are hashtags that we use frequently. Some that are not on here are, voice control, smart speakers, anything that is, we'll use ones that are product focused. If it's an article about, connected lighting or something like that, we might use hashtag smart lights or smart light bulb. Or it's important to do, when you're on social, to kind of look up some of these and figure out who is tweeting or posting with using these hashtags, and does it make sense for you to use it too, because you want to be part of that conversation. And also, if there's a hashtag that you're like, oh, I'm going to try this, and then you find out that nobody's been using it, or you're the only one using it, kind of talking to yourself, it's good to try to find ones that are more popular. So these definitely are ones that are pretty popular. Obviously, smart home and IoT are hugely used, and you should definitely be using those regularly. And there's also hashtags associated with each show that we go to. And so that's, we use that very heavily when we're at a show to join the show conversation, and, make sure that our posts are showing up in those feeds. And at CES in particular, not every year, but in several years, they've had these like giant Jumbotron boards right outside the stand smart home marketplace, where they were posting, featuring different posts from the show floor, anybody who's using the hashtag CES 2019. And so that was great. We saw our posts, we were using it really heavily. We were posting a lot during CES, and we saw a bunch of our posts featured there or whatnot. So, great tool, and important to use hashtags, and tag us and share with us. Like I said, if you tell us ahead of time you have a launch or something that you want shared on social, that's great, because we can sort of work that in. And we'll talk a little bit more about how we do, specifically what we do at trade shows for social, because there's sort of a whole element to that as well. The last thing I'll say about this is that we also, if we get inbound questions from consumers or end users about technology, we try really hard to sort of divert. And if it's an easy question about Z-Wave, we will answer it, or we'll direct them to resources online, whether that's zwave.com or the Alliance website or Silicon Labs. But if it is a manufacturer, we try to bring you into the conversation. So we'll tag, for example, if it was like a SmartThings question, we'll tag the SmartThings Twitter handle and, let them jump in. So it's definitely something that we're trying to sort of, make sure that we're giving folks resources and answering questions, but also not, we're not the authority on individual product brands, right? Okay, so happening here. There we go. Social media engagement. This is just a couple of slides that feature ways that we talk to and engage with members. If we post an article about something, and it has a bunch of members featured in it, like the roundup story or a Q&A that a few members were interviewed for, we try to always tag you in those so that you see when we're posting, and you can retweet or amplify or share. Or post, repost, depending on what platforms we share it into. So we try to, do that as best as possible. And we also will reshare and highlight sort of top social posts for the past 2 months in our newsletter. So you'll see in our See and Hear section that people will, you'll see like the different tweets and stuff. Usually we try to focus on external, so folks who are tweeting about us or about our members. Sometimes it's a member post, sometimes it's like here you see Cedia tweeting about a session at ISE back in February. We also highlight our new members, so if you recently joined the Alliance, you have an opportunity to get featured in the new member section as well, and that's done through ourselves and through Janet when you sign up for your membership. So find us, share stuff with us, photos, link to information. Here's some additional hashtags. We also have a unique hashtag, hashtag Z-Wave Summit, for our twice a year biannual summits, one in the spring in Amsterdam, one in the fall in the US. And so we don't actually tag it with where the location is or the year. We just keep it sort of evergreen. So hashtag Z-Wave Summit will, right now, if you went to search for it, it would bring a myriad of content from the past several years of summits. And it's nice to be able to kind of see that all in one place. All right, so to kind of wrap up, we're going to talk about trade shows and events. And again, from the perspective of what types of things do you get when you participate in a pavilion? What can you expect? How can you take advantage of all the different ways in which we try to promote our members at these events? So the Z-Wave participates in events, obviously, with pavilions. I'm sure many, if not all of you, are super familiar with this. We provide members the opportunity to really get their products out there and talk to journalists and, make the most of that trade show by getting connected. And this is particularly, I think, helpful for our members who are smaller, who don't have their own PR firms or a PR communications person internally who's doing this outreach to journalists for them. And so that, we try to work really closely with members to make sure that we're highlighting all of the great stuff that you're doing. And we do a lot of promotion during the show and after the show as well. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. So basically, Alex mentioned this as a part of the PR toolkit. We have a pavilion press guide. So this is something that kind of gives you end-to-end all of the information you would ever want to know about getting involved with the PR opportunities around trade shows and sort of how to do it. For pre-show, we really focus on a couple of different elements. So we always have a press release that goes out, usually a week to a couple of days before an event. That is sort of, we call it our pavilion press release. And so what that is just a sort of, here's what the Z-Wave Alliance is going to be doing at the show. Here's what you can expect to see in the pavilion. We do it as not necessarily as a pure news item. We don't expect it is going to get posted, but we do expect that it will help drive traffic and interest and inbound into the booth. And we use that to book appointments and to, lots of folks will reach out to us proactively and say, what members are going to be in the booth this year, who's showing off what, or what's new in the ecosystem, et cetera. So that's one piece that we start preparing. The other thing that we do is collect deadlines around awards and editorial opportunities. So for show dailies where there's a on-site print publication, those always have deadlines several months out from the show. Most trade shows have awards attached to them. CES has probably a dozen or more awards for best of show and new products that are introduced at CES. Obviously, those types of things are not things that the Alliance can submit for, but we want to make sure that we're giving you guys all of that information and support in submitting for some of those things. Certainly, if your product with Z-Wave inside wins one of these awards, it's great for. We want to promote that too. It's great for the ecosystem in general. So we do share deadlines, and we reach out to each member who's participating in the pavilion with sort of a quick summary of, let us know what products you're going to have at your booth. Or your pod rather, let us know what types of demos you're going to be running. Is there going to be a spokesperson on site who would be willing to, do a video interview or talk to the press? That's really key. There's been certainly times where a pod doesn't have anybody standing there, or the person standing there is maybe a marketing manager, but not someone who wants to be on camera. And, those types of things are certainly, it's a balance, right? I know everybody a lot of people have secondary booths and resources. We really encourage you to have at least one of the days of a show to have a spokesperson there. So that we can really highlight them to the press and make sure we're hitting you up for the opportunities when a video crew walks in or when a journalist wants a booth tour or whatnot. We do a lot of social media, and we produce a lot of content at each show. So we do take lots of pictures, photos, and turn them into graphics. We do a significant amount of on-site video that we sort of curate and post throughout the event and after the event. And we work with different media editorial houses to do that as well. A couple of years ago, we partnered with NAPCO, and we did a sort of a branded, video about the pavilion and about, all the opportunities and, what are the benefits to being in the pavilion from a member perspective. And then the post-show, what we really focus on is a sort of a comprehensive coverage and metrics report. So it really gives folks the ability to see, what were the highlights of the show from a PR perspective. And, if you had a new product launching and you got a bunch of press on it, we'll share the highlights of the different stories that were posted, whether it's about the Alliance specifically or about a new Z-Wave product. And you can use these reports if you're having conversations with executives about the ROI for shows. If you're able to show, we had this product launch, we worked with the Alliance, it was really great, here's all the stuff we got from it. So those reports are supposed to sort of give you a window in. I will say that a couple of things. One is that we don't always do on-site support. So it depends on the size of the show, the location of the show, who's involved. We do some overseas shows where we partner with the Z-Wave evangelists and groups on the ground. They will send pictures inbound, they'll send video and content like that. So we can still post things on social media and be active. We still put out press releases for those shows, but we may not have the same on-site engagement and support that we do at a CDF, for example, or CES or ISC West. So that's just something to keep in mind there. It depends on the size of the show and what's going on there. One thing that we have added recently is we're looking at, for folks who are participating in the pavilion, looking at proposing different speaking opportunities to the shows themselves for content. They're always looking for panel ideas and talks and education sessions. And so looking at proposing them from an alliance and then basically telling them, we'll give you 4 panelists on this topic, ABC, whatever the topic is. And then we'll open that up to on a first come, first served basis of, what members we think would be good for that panel and are relevant to talk about that topic. But we'll open that up to pavilion members first. So if you're in the pavilion, you may have a speaking opportunity that you might not otherwise have. So that's sort of a new thing that we're using, and I think it'll be really great. It's a good way to sort of amplify your presence. For there's no cost involved necessarily to be on a panel, but it's a way to amplify your presence at a show. So like I said, social media, we share member news constantly on social. We're going to talk a little bit about like how to maximize your work and help us help you, but definitely be using hashtags. If you have a specific piece that you're really trying to you're trying to amplify. A couple of years ago, we had one of our members who was doing shade control in the Z-Wave Experience House and wanted to do a Facebook Live during the show with Mitch and our team, kind of doing a walkthrough of the home. And they wanted to promote kind of all of the different products in the house that were working with their product. And so that got a ton of views. They have a really big social following on Facebook, and we were able to leverage that and share that on the Alliance feeds. So things like that, where you're looking, for your own brand to try to produce certain types of content or do certain things that shows, we want to be helpful with that and help coordinate that as best as possible. So best practices for the pavilion. It's really a matter of, some people will say to us, I didn't get a lot of press at the last show, or, how can we get you guys to help us more? There are really some key things that you can do at a show to kind of not necessarily guarantee, but really, really increase your chances that you're going to have some good press. And this goes for both in the pavilion itself and also just for your own booth. This is, from years and years of doing these shows, these are the types of things that press look for. So one is a live demo. Demos can be tricky at shows. We all know that the demo environment at trade shows is generally not optimal. But even if you have something that's sort of a canned demo or a faked demo, but it shows off the functionality of your product, of your app, whatever it is you're showing off, journalists really like that. Not only does it give them kind of a sense of what the experience is, but it's also good for visuals. So nowadays, it's very common to have someone who's writing a story but also wants to take really nice photography, or walks up with a video person with them to do an on-camera interview. And while it's not necessarily true that nobody will shoot a video if you have a static product just up on a wall, it definitely is less compelling for a journalist from that perspective if they can see a lot of stuff happening live. And again, that doesn't have to be crazy. Obviously, you're not going to be able to demo every feature of a product, but I will say that the live demos are definitely the ones that get the most attention. We talked about this before, but I can't say it enough. Have a spokesperson available on site to talk, even if it's only for the day, and let us know when that person will be there too. I always hate when we have opportunities and we're going and doing a booth tour and we get to a pod that we want to talk about, and then the person there I don't blame them at all, but they don't want to be on camera. They're not the correct spokesperson. And so I hate not being able to give those opportunities to them. But so it really, if you can have someone there, even if they're not your top level executives, even if it's just someone who's comfortable talking to the media or being on camera for a YouTuber or an influencer or whatnot, those are really important. So have that there as well. And then finally, getting us info in advance. I've said this a lot in terms of sending us stuff, but I can't say it enough. If you get us information well in advance and we know what you're going to be highlighting in the show, especially if it's a new product that's sort of coming out of the show or just came up before the show, please let us know that it's something brand new and that you guys are going to be making a big deal out of it, because we will be able to, ahead of the show, put together sort of a, we call them hot sheets. We put together one-pagers for Mitch and for anybody who's in the booth from the Alliance or Z-Wave, so that they know what's new and what to see in the booth. And so if someone comes up to them or they're in a press meeting and someone says like, okay, what do you got? Like, show me around, let's do a booth tour. We obviously want to hit as many people as possible, but if you have a brand new product, there are some journalists that will say, I'm only covering what's new at the show. Please don't show me stuff that's been out for years. Please don't show me stuff I saw last year, like brand new for the show. That's what I want to see. And so for those folks, we have to be quick. We have to, point out the cool things. They really only have time for a handful of tours. And so if you have given us that information ahead of time, you greatly increases your chances that we're going to be able to come step by and talk about your product to the journalist. We just talked about during the show for social, but like I said, again, make sure you're tagging and posting throughout the show, because we will share your news. If you're hosting a demo specifically, we've had members before who they've set up their own press things or whatnot. Last year we had one particular group that had a video crew coming to do like sort of a big shoot at their pod. And I took some video of them doing the video, and I took some pictures and was able to kind of share that. And then once the video went live, we shared that as well. So again, the more we know, the more we can plan for that promotion. And then sometimes after the show, people will make announcements or wait until after, particularly like CES, after the buzz dies down, to sort of go back and relaunch a product or send it out to the press that didn't get a chance to cover it. And that's also an example or spot where you want to let us know that you're doing that too. Like Alex mentioned in the newsletter section, there are specific spotlight areas where we talk about new products in the context of, this is what was launched at this past show, with sort of links and overall kind of descriptions and whatnot. So that's something that you'll generally always see in the wrap-up newsletter. The following the show, you'll see some of those cool products and things that were announced at the show. Upcoming events and shows, we're almost finished here. We obviously have CEDIA in Denver in the second week of September. CTEC in Japan is happening in October. And CES, which, 2020 is a lot closer than we think. I know that all three of these shows have openings in the pavilion. So reach out to Janet to discuss options. And then once you sign on to have a pod, that's when you'll hear from Castor, and we can work together on whatever you're doing there. We also have our summit. So the fall summit is coming up at the end of September. And we did want to highlight that not only are there opportunities to sponsor at the summit and get in front of a lot of different brands and companies, but there's also an opportunity if you have a specific case study or project that you've been working on, or an area of expertise that you want to continue to push. So let's say you've been doing stuff with the aging in place market or energy management, or you're working really heavily on data security and privacy, and you're trying to take a leadership role there, whatever it may be. We want to hear from you. We want those proposals, and we want to talk, because there may be an opportunity for you to actually present at the summit in front of the business and marketing work group. So, and don't be, we may also reach out to you and say, hey, I know you have this thing. Do you want to come talk about it? We found over the years of doing this that members really appreciate hearing about, the case studies and live projects and implementations, and hearing what other people are doing and how they're tackling certain challenges. Those are some of the most valuable sessions that we get really great feedback on. So, we welcome kind of inbound queries on what you could potentially do at the summit, both in the US and in the European one next year. So that is our webinar. We have 6 minutes left, which is great. This is our email address, and this is how to find us. Like I said, Alex shared, it goes to myself, Alex, Pete, and our entire team. We're very responsive. We will contact you within generally 24 to 48 hours after you reach out to us. And yeah, we'd love to work with you all. This will be recorded, so you can share this with other colleagues if someone didn't get a chance to tune in. And for those, maybe some people had to drop early. So we will send that out as well, and you'll be able to use it and re-listen to it whenever you want to refresh your memory and whatnot. Thank you all so much for joining today's webinar. I hope to hear from you all soon. Take care.